find out how long the colour has been absent. As you can see here, there are vials attached to the picture of each chamber, matching the ones that I have for my Nerva. So you can tell at a single mouse over that there's a small amount of gold and emerald in the reservation, and in the mine. Again, nothing in the game tells you this useful fact, but it's quite easy to work out. And there's another indication too, there are little splashes of colour appearing in each of the chambers, so watch out for those. Even right now at the start of the game I found myself with virtually nothing to do for the entire cycle, so I can quite happily waste it away.
Ema doesn't answer, and Una is near death.
Eva and Una, they're having a bad time of it. I presume they're other sisters. There's nothing I can do about them right now. The game is already establishing future encounters, showing who's weak and who's somehow lost enough to not be able to talk from a distance, or perhaps they're entirely mute. I will track them down in due course and smother them with my...
I sense two hiding here. I can hear them.
Oh, we're back. Thanks, sister. So we got predators. Hiding? Right. What are they hiding from? Or are they hiding in wait? What does she mean by this? No new sprouts have arrived here, only the colour that I planted myself. I'm not sure how much this changes things, but I'm pretty sure the game recognises whether you're doing well or not, and changes how much colour you get per cycle and per chamber. I'm not sure how accurate this is, and there are other mechanics in place, but from my experience there usually is a lot more on the second cycle. But then again, I don't see how it could have done so well on the first cycle that it's deemed it necessary to withhold colour from me. I've worked out how a lot of things work in here, but some of them are still clouded even to me. I can't promise that I'll be able to answer the points I just made, but I can promise that I'll learn quite a few things during this playthrough. Nothing quite as significant as my first time, of course. On that one I managed to get about 95% of the way through, and then I just hit a brick wall. I could not continue. The game had been allowing me to keep going for that long, and then it decided to just stop me utterly abruptly. I was fine with it, to be honest. I started again pretty much instantly. I mean, as well as being quite invested at that point, I also knew a lot more things that I could try out and do a much better job at it. I've just noticed I managed to walk through here without getting thwacked by a single predator. Oh, there he is. And here, as you see, if you get close enough to him, then he'll dive bomb you, and it doesn't look like it has much effect, but the area of attack is actually much bigger than it appears. They don't pose much threat unless they get the drop on you, but I can assure you that will happen a few times at least. If you're not underneath them where they can see you, they won't attack you. Predator surfing. Not something you see every day. Whoa! I'm taking heavy bombardment. Time to drop out. Well, I'm going to be hanging around rotten structures more often. It's worth it for the additional escape routes. So all that's left to do is wait for trees and more arbitrary injections of colour. There is some emerald over here, actually, but it's not worth my time getting it. I mean, technically I won't lose anything if I do go and get it, but for the purposes of this LP, I don't want to waste your time doing things that even I deem unnecessary. I do still have the opportunity to build enough emerald up to plant some more trees, so I'm just passing that all through me now, and waiting until the very last moment before I head back into the garden. I could plant some azure while I'm at it. There's probably not that much point. No, I don't think I've got quite enough here. I'll do it next time though. Azure's definitely one of the more useful colours. And to explain why, I'll probably have to start right at the very beginning. Colour affects everything. When you hold colour inside you, each one gives you its own property, and when you use it in the world, it gets absorbed by the void, like a white shirt being affected by many different types of socks. I think the game...
There's nobody here. Nobody.
The game prefers to think of the void slightly more eloquently as a canvas, but it's essentially the same thing. The use of any colour has wide-ranging general effects, but as far as specifics go, if we'll take my first example of azure, azure is the colour of suffering, which in this case affects speed, I suppose if you're suffering, it's more incentive to run away from something. Or, as the game puts it, it just enjoys playing with the flow of time, and who wouldn't? When it's inside us, it allows us to move quicker, so putting 100 drops in our hearts will give us the maximum speed buff. Azure that we use in the world will have a very similar effect, but on the Void rather than ourselves. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe that even includes colour that you use on trees. Everything adds up, and this is what people refer to when they say that colour is being wasted on the Void, and every single bit is recorded in your journal. And this changes the Void's very nature. I pretty much have to quote from the journal here, since otherwise it would seem as if I'm giving away spoilers, but it is said that the flow of time stops when you enter a chamber, but this isn't actually so, it just slows it down, and the more Azure there is in the Void, the less it will slow it down, so when you enter and leave a chamber, an amount of time will have passed, which will become greater the more Azure that I use. Your hearts don't drain out in the chambers though, so it's pretty much just acting as if some time has passed. Hopefully that makes sufficient sense to you. I can't really say any more on it, not because it will spoil anything, because there's really no more to say, and no more hints that the game gives you. But suffice to say that I don't really care about the time passing most of the time, so I'm free to use as much Azure as I possibly can. So I'll do that, not just at the start, but for all areas of the game. I'll try and keep my stocks of Azure up fairly high so that I can use it for routine, general purposes. In a garden I don't have much choice, but hopefully I can mitigate the damage to some extent. All this time I've been debating on whether to use this emerald or not. I don't need it that desperately. I've already got these 2 trees, but then not much else. I'll probably get plenty later, and these trees aren't worth much anyway. They do their job for the start of the game, but I doubt I'll come back and use them a second time. Even after you've drained all there is to get over several cycles, they can still get revitalised after a while. I only just had to stoop to use the rejuvenating trees on my floundering first playthrough, so I definitely won't be here. I don't think anything special happens either, so that's at least one act of desperation you won't bear witness to. Oh, I had enough emerald to pass another lot through me. Well, more fool me. As long as I get through this early section of the game, there won't be any long-term repercussions. As I said before, you can get through relatively okay, even without being able to donate colour to trees. In the Russian version, this entire tutorial section did not actually exist, so you could access the first 2 sisters immediately.
If you wish to bring the new cycle closer,
We've already heard this.
when you need, but don't do this yet. You're not ready for the things that might happen so soon.
Ah, okay. And that's perfectly true. I can sit here on a hoard of colour and let each cycle tick away, over and over again. I may show that off in a bonus video, but we've been rightly warned to gather up all the colour that we can when given the opportunity. Yes, in the Russian version, these 2 gals were open from the start, so this entire section was completely cut, which meant absolutely no hand-holding and no feel of working towards a goal, both things making it difficult in ways that don't actually increase the difficulty. The Russian version was released in April of 2008, as opposed to, well, September of 2009 in the UK, so as you can imagine the discrepancy is huge between them. I've only seen videos of it and a list of vague changes, so I'll try and spot the differences when they come up. In general terms, firstly, the Russian version was, well, it was a grind fest, really. Though the repetition was well masked by the originality and grandeur. Oh, I've run out of gold as well, this could be going better. Previously you had to put a lot more colour into the sisters, in order to feed them for a purpose that will be revealed in a second. But you also got a lot more colour from everything you did, from the sprouts and from the trees. So everything was scaled up.
You're wasting Nerva from your hearts.
Goodness, I've actually filled up my gold reserves here. So, while the sisters took more and you gained more, it looks like you just end up giving more and it would work itself out. But the problem comes by the fact that you could carry about as much as you can in this game, which meant they had to go back and forward, give them tiny amounts each time. I'm sure it was still enjoyable, and God knows there are millions of people out there who have no basis on which to show a distaste for repetition.
There's nobody here. Nobody.
The characters and story and visuals and gameplay more than make up for any of that, though, in my opinion. Oh, look at that. We got 23 on the second cycle. Pretty good.
No regrets.
As for me, I'm already almost done. This will probably be my second to last trip, since I need to come back later and sort my Azure out. Got to use all the trees too. What did I say about opportunities?
Don't fear death. There is no death in the void. No one will protect you better than I.
You can tell from a distance which ones still have, there we go, huge amounts of colour attached to them, even in a big foggy garden like this one. I'm not sure if it was the Russian version or the beta version, but in that one you didn't donate colour to